Hello again. This is Qyalms returning from the Grim Wayside. And when last we had spoken, I had just opened the blind box for Skeletal Wing. Since that time, we've had a couple weeks. I've changed my fingernails to their Halloween design. Halloween has come and gone, and the delayed versions of the doll, which I had purchased, which would be the recolor of Skeletal Wing, and then also the four color spirit or four-eared spirit has come in. And then even then, all of my feels and my thoughts, I still wanted the Plume Moth, which was the other dark colored colorway in the Lulu Elf Story series. And so I broke down and I did get Plume Moth from an AliExpress store, which allowed me to choose the doll that I wanted specifically. So in the rest of this video, we'll be opening the special recolor, the special edition of the doll, and then we'll also be opening Plume Moth. So our little friend, the skeletal wing, will take a break and sit off to the side until we open her sister later so we can enjoy their twinning. I do know this one is going to be Plume Moth, so let's go ahead and open her. Okay. So we do have some of the things which I would have considered extras when they were sent from Kika Goods. So it looks like even this AliExpress store is sending what we would call extras. There are two open eye heads. And so the one is blank. The other one has gray markings, which I believe are identical. No, they're slightly different actually. Um, It has the gray markings that belong with the Plume Moth doll, but it has a different expression. We'll take another closer look at that in a minute. It has a bag of hands and feet with the high-heeled feet in there. We've got three additional pairs of shoes, the brown loafers, the black Mary Janes, and then the white high-heeled loafers. There is a doll stand in here. She has a separate set of blue eyes, and these are different from the eyes that she has in the doll. So these blue eyes that she's received have it, the center part almost looks like a little anchor. I'm not exactly sure what the shape is supposed to be. Maybe it's a little skull or some kind of creature, but it's a pale blue and it has sort of almost like a drip pattern, or if it's a skull, it has like the pattern of teeth that are sort of coming down. And then at the very center with the iris and the pupil, the iris is a medium color blue where the pupil is like a dark color blue with two little light colored lines in it. Then we have her outfits. We have some putty. I'm not sure what part of her outfit would need putty if she has it, or if that's just something they include with all the dolls. There are two cards in here. There's the one with the QR codes and the brand. And then there's her specific character card, which has a pretty little illustration on it, and it says Plume Moth underneath. So let me just move more of these a little further off. Okay, so we've opened up the body, and it has the same body, of course, as the other skeletal wing that we opened up. I still think these knees are a little weird, the way they look in profile, especially where the top part of the leg hangs down over the knee in a very strange sort of way. And then her wrists fit a little weird. There's something a little strange about the body. Like, I think you can kind of see here the way the wrist doesn't quite fit into the socket of her arm. I don't think this is a huge barrier, but it's a little odd, a little strange the way it fits. However, I do think as weird as the body kinda makes me feel and, like, this arm is backward. There we go. I do think that the heads are very pretty. I really do like the expressions that they gave them in the painting. We can see now that there is quite a bit of difference between the newly supplied face and the face the doll comes with. When I was looking at this in the packaging, because the coloring seems so similar to this outfit, I thought it was going to be like a slight expression change, perhaps, between the two, but they are actually completely different. I'm not certain which doll this one goes to. Let me just check my. So I've checked, and this isn't doesn't appear to actually be the face of any other doll. It appears to be a completely separate one, which is really interesting considering it doesn't look like the one that came with the doll. Uh, because of the outline, it looks like it would fit very well with this particular outfit because the dark blue line that surrounds the eyebrows and the eyelashes are the same color as the accents on the main outfit. But this doesn't actually appear to be anyone else's face. So um, I like that they sent it. That's really cool. And I think it goes really well with this outfit. But it is very different from any of the standard faces. It's not just it's not even just a recolor of another one. It appears to be a separate and distinct face, which is interesting. So the normal face of the doll has dark brown eyebrows that are just a single line, and they're straight across. She has dark brown eyelashes with these little blue accents in the corners. And then there are some little dark brown lines that give some definition to the eye socket. Her cheeks have a little bit of blushing on them, and then her mouth has a little tiny tongue. So it has a slightly animal look to her little ooh mouth there. And her eyes, they're quite pretty. They're sort of almost an aqua color, which is definitely very different from anything else in the colorway of her outfit. Um, the main part of the iris appears to be an aqua. Her pupils appear to be some kind of dark gray lavender color. And then she has like what look like little bubbles drawn in a lighter color, even over both the pupil area and the um, iris area. There's some like little white bubbles. The face that she comes with comes in a dark gray colorway with some blue outlining and then some light gray accents in it. The little mouth is an upside down carrot, and she has the two blushing on her cheeks. So I think both of these faces are very cute. Um, and I actually think the one that came extra might actually fit the doll better in the long run, but we'll go ahead and put this one aside for now. So, looking at her accessories, she's got a pair of closed fist hands that all the dolls are going to come with. These are not grippy hands because they are not open, they are closed fists. Here is her, whoops. She has her little friend, and her little friend has a little double tail. I don't know if that's, do moths have double tails? It has a texture more like it's a feather. The little tail spins around, it's in a dark blue. The head does not move. On the front, it has the dark red accents on the cheeks and the chest, a dark red bow, and then it has these sort of, I don't know what you would call these exactly. Um, it has these sort of serrated ears or scalloped ears that I guess are supposed to look like moth wings. And then the painting on the ears specifically have almost a metallic sheen to them. So it's more than just the dark blue that's on the eyes and the tail, but there's actually sort of an iridescence or a pearlescence over the top of those ears. If we just look at her hair, I noticed that they look very strange when they are separated from her head, but her ears, which resemble her little friends, and I guess are supposed to look like moth wings. They are, whoops, her head is quite heavy. Um, they are separately colored pieces that are glued in, and it says 2L and 2R on them. So two right and two left. They are not removable. They are very firmly attached to the hair, but they are separate from the head. So her hair is a sort of I would say just it's a very neutral to cool colored gray white color with a slight bit of ombre accents that match her ears and sort of this like very neutral colored brown. Her ponytail is quite large and it's asymmetrical and it's very pretty, the sculpt on it. Her hair bow is a hard plastic in a dark blue, and it appears to be the same color all over. It's a single color piece. Her bangs are also pretty straightforward. There's the slightest bit of blushing or ombre of the brown towards the bottom, but otherwise it's pretty much the same color, sort of a neutral to cool toned gray white. She has two little red Mary Janes. They are, I think, let me look. Yeah. They are identical to Skeleton Wings shoes, but they are a bright red instead of a black. It looks like she has two, and since there's two and they're not stretchy, I'm going to go with wristbands. They might be a little big for wristbands. Let me check the picture. See if we can. Yeah, so it looks like these are going to be wrist cuffs that she has. So she has two velvet ribbon wrist cuffs in a very dark red, and these are velvet. They don't appear to have any sort of stretch or anything to them. She has these are leg warmers. And so the fabric is it's a sort of a peculiar fabric, and it's used in all of the pieces of her dress. But it has a stiffness to it that makes it's definitely some kind of like a polyester fabric, um, but it's unusual in its like stiffness. It has a really beautiful scalloped lace that goes around the top. It's a very intricate scallop. Let me see if I can, maybe you can see a little better against a darker background. But there's a really beautiful scalloped lace. It's in sort of a neutral brown color with a slight pinkishness to it. And on the front of these leg warmers, there are crisscrosses, three of them in that pinky color, and that is sort of screen printed on. Her main dress, it opens all the way top to bottom in the back, and it is separated into two pieces of Velcro, one for the top part of the bodice, one for the lower part. And that's similar to Skeleton Wing. And I'm going to assume, yeah, it's so that the tail can stick out between the two sections of the Velcro through the dress. The sewing on the inside is quite tidy, especially around the waistband. Um, and it looks like they've done a pretty good job trimming and um, snipping the bulk in order to make it curve nicely around the neck. So the dress itself is the top is one layer, and it has just ruffles for sleeves. On the bodice, there are two rhinestones glued on in bright red. Let me see if I can. A little hard to see because they are extremely tiny, but there's two little red rhinestones like buttons. Then there's this dark blue satin ribbon at the top, at the center of the collar. The collar is a pretty thick fabric that is not hemmed, but it does have a scalloped edge to it. And it doesn't appear to be the kind of thing that can fray. The hem of the ruffles is, however, folded under and sewn. It's very neat and tidy on both sides. The skirt is fully two pieces, one over the other. The underskirt is that same white fabric that we saw in the leg warmers. And then, oh, that's interesting. No. Um, the top part with that pink fabric has the same scalloped lace on it that's on those leg warmers. And I thought for a second, looking at it underneath, that it was some kind of elastic, but it doesn't appear to be stretchy at all. I would expect it to be stretchy as part of the top of this, but it doesn't appear to be that stretchy. It's a very pretty lace. The scallop is very, very fine. And so I think it's a really nice touch on the dress. It's a nice accent. Her tail is the same fabric, but it appears to be, I think it's like double-sided and then ironed together with like an adhesive in the middle. It's very, very stiff. It's pleated a couple times for these long tail pieces. And then these upper pieces, there is a full wing shape cut out. Again, it's not hemmed in any way, but it appears to have been finished with some kind of like a adhesive interface. And then over the top of that, there is an accent smaller wing on top. And at the very center, between the two pieces, is a red satin ribbon. And that is held around her waist with this elastic loop, just like with the skeletal wing. And then her overdress, the Velcro is separated the same way so that the overdress can go over the tail and the tail can come through this section that doesn't have any Velcro in it. The ruffle on this is a extremely fine small chiffon ruffle sewn into the hem. It's very pretty. It's very fine. There is just the slightest scallop to the skirt. You can see where it goes in just a little tiny bit in the front and then curves back out again. There's just that single dip in the skirt. The top is open all the way from the shoulder to the bodice or to the waist. The bodice is open. It has just the tiniest bit of a crossover in the front. And then accenting the edges of that, this overdress is more of that red lace or red ruffle, I should say, the translucent red ruffle. So let's get her dressed. Okay, now that we've finished dressing her, um, these I would say the wrist cuffs are a little awkwardly large. I had to pretty much take them off anyway to take the hands off in order to get them on. In which case, if you're already taking the hands off, you can afford to make them a little smaller, I think. But I do think that the accent is very pretty on her wrist. I just think it's a little oversized. Uh, Man, she sure does want to come her sockets wanna come out of joint quite easily. She doesn't seem to quite fit into herself that well, and her limbs do want to just sort of jiggle themselves into really awkward positions. The, waist ruffle thing, was very generous in its length. It seemed a little loose at first, but once it goes through 2 layers of clothing, the dress and then the overdress, um, it does seem to be appropriately fit. So they did put a lot of attention to detail in making the fit correct. The way that the elastic is sewn on does make it gape a little awkwardly. It was a little difficult to try and get the Velcro to lay flat where you can't see it, where it doesn't try and pull itself open again. But other than that, aside from the fact that I think she's going to be a little tricky to display because her legs and things do not want to stay oriented properly. Um, she's quite pretty, and I do like the colorway. I like the aesthetic choices for their 2 darker dolls, which would be the regular colored Skeletal Wing and the Plume Moth. The rest of the dolls in the series, let me bring her back down. The rest of the dolls in the series very much are more of a pastel sort of colorway than Skeletal Wing and the Plume Moth. I would say that the hidden doll, the Ancestor Dragon, she falls sort of in between. She has lighter colors and some like darker, richer reds. And it didn't look like she had any need for this putty. Let's go ahead and open the recolor of Skeletal Wing. We can do this real quick since we did just open the regular color Skeletal Wing. So this doll came from Kika Goods. She's a little crunched, which is a little unusual for Kika Goods, to be honest. I don't keep the packaging for very long. I keep it for a couple months, especially if I need to refer back to what it looked like, or for some reason, you would be surprised at the number of times I've gone back and looked at old packaging. Um, but generally, in the very long run, I don't keep the packaging for these like I keep it for my Nendoroids. I will say though, the packaging for the Lulu Elf Story has uniquely and uniformly been very, very pretty. I love this illustration that they did for this special recolor box. So on the box, she's called Limited Hanging Card Recolor Skeletal Wing. She has her little authenticity sticker on the back, and her QR codes. I'm sure that I I'm sure that the mic is not picking it up, but I'm very distracted at the moment by my very large cat snoring very, very loudly just off to the side. Oh gosh, he's not just off to the side. He's like in a completely separate room. He's so noisy. Okay, bringing in regular skeletal wing to offer some comparisons. All right, we'll go ahead and compare their friends real quick. Oops, it's a little bit of a mess. All right, so comparing the two little spirits. So this one, of course, is regular skeletal wing. Regular skeletal wing has just the slightest amount of um, sort of a dark pink It's almost like the powder, like a chrome powder that you'd use if you were doing your nails. It has the slightest amount of this chrome pinking on it, but it's in general a sort of matte black. It's really pretty and really subtle. You definitely can't see it on the picture, but in the light, it shines sort of this like fuchsia pink. The Recolor is extremely pearlescent. They have exactly the same tails and bodies. Everything's about them the same except for the Recolor. But this one is covered in a super shiny pearlescent glaze, where the eyes are white on this one. They're pink over here, where the pink cheeks. They are a dark mauvey gray color on this side. And then, of course, the bow is very, very brightly pink. The pearlescence on this particular toy is extreme. It's very, very pretty. It gives it sort of a yellowy color. So that is what those two look like. Put him off to the side. So here it says Recolor Skeletal Wing on her little ID card. She came with the stand. She came with a second pair of dark black slippers or shoes. That's interesting. Um, so looking at the two dolls, the Recolor is very definitely a much, much lighter colored doll. In terms of skin tone, she's very, very pale, very, very white. Just pop off. So you can definitely see them here. I know I've made an absolute mess of the table. But you can see, aside from the painting and the eye color being different, she's extremely white compared to the regular skin tone of the doll. So they are distinctly different in that way. They're not just a clothing recolor swap or a makeup swap, but they are two differently colored dolls in terms of their doll bodies. Again, I don't know if the mic picks it up, but it sounds like our neighbor is murdering their children. They are screaming out there. So in the Recolor then, she has all of the same hands and feet extras, but they're in that very pale skin tone. And then the two extra pairs of shoes, these would have been the brown loafers with the other doll, and these would have been the cream-colored loafer heels that came with the other doll. Let me see if I can. So these would have been the brown shoes, and these would have been the cream color shoes, but they are in their unpainted state. They are in the color that if you get like unpainted hair, for example, they will be in this sort of white resin color. So these aren't colored cream, they are in their unpainted state. She has her two little white fist hands. She has identical shoes to the other two dolls, but where Plume Moths were red and Skeletal Wings are black, hers are white shiny. And then where Skeletal Wing has this long black tail that is in a single color, the Recolor has a white tail that has a pink ombre at the very, very tip of it. But like the other one, it doesn't have any sort of attachment that goes to the tail. So you have to slip it in underneath of the waistband of the elastic, the bow that goes around her waist. Looking at their hair, the Recolor has a pink and it has a pearlescence on it that this one doesn't. The pearlescence you can see a little bit more on the lower part of the original skeletal wing, but for the most part, the Recolor is a bright bubblegum pink with a pearlescence over the top, and where the other bow was black, her bow is white. The bottom of their hair on both is still translucent, but of course this one is sort of that neutral, sort of warm gray, and the Recolor is that bright pink color. but they are both painted in the same way to leave the bottom pearlescent and translucent. So with the headbands, for Skeletal Wing, I did end up using the putty because after a while it just does not want to stay on, or at least you can't move her or jostle her at all, or her headband will come off. Her headband, of course, was plain black with no additional painting on it. The Recolors is white with a little bit of the ombre pink, and it has pearlescence on it as well. But in every other way, the mold is identical. Oh, her eyeballs fell out. That's interesting. So same body, her face. She has a very similar expression. I would say identical. She has an identical expression to the regular skeletal wing. Um, but there's some very slight differences. So where this one has a much more pink, it's very difficult to see because it's so pale. Um, but it has a pink colorway to the painting, but the eyebrows are slightly angled differently. These are look a little bit more sad. Her mouth is a little tiny bit narrower on the recolor than it is on the regular. And she doesn't have the same pointy eyelashes on her bottom lid that the original did. Um, her eyelashes are drawn out and outlined in a very dark pink, but otherwise the shape is very similar. So she's more of a pastel, and there's a few lines difference, and the angle's a little different, but the paint job on the faces is very similar between the original and the recolor. And her eyes are very, very pale. They're a darker pink at the top, a lighter pink for a pupil, and then pretty much a white with just a slight tinge of like yellowy gray to it at the bottom. And then there are some white accents, some white reflections in the eyes. Put those back in. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at her dress. Oh, she has more of the putty, which I'll use on the headband. So, in terms of the dressing, it appears that they have identical back bows. They appear to be sewn in exactly the same way, except hers is white, where hers is black. She has slightly different. Let's see. Okay, so this is a little different. Where the regular doll has black pumpkin pants, this one has a white underskirt that's different from the black pumpkin pants. So her white underskirt has this sort of chiffon that does not have a stripy texture like the other one did, but has sort of a crinkle texture on it. And it's in two layers. The top layer and the bottom layer are made of the same fabric, but the top layer has been embroidered and added with this lace so that there is an open work design on top, and then a lace with a fringed edge. And then this underskirt of that is in this translucent fabric, and then there is a scalloped lace trim on the bottom of that. So instead of pumpkin pants, she has a second skirt. Her socks are different, where these socks are a solid, these are a stripe, and part of the stripe is translucent, and it has a double-sided ruffle at the top of the sock. And then in terms of the dress, so they have very similar so sort of the bib area and the neck area. So they have the same long sleeves with the ribbon trim at the cuffs. But the special recolor has a much larger cross on their bib And the neck, instead of being a scalloped lace around the top, it is a ruffled collar. There's some very strong lines and some strong translucence in the sleeves. They look like they might be slightly less puffy, so it could be just the way that it had been packed made it look a little different. They do both still have these crisscrossing um, chains on the front, except they are crisscrossed differently. So there's still three attachment points on the side, but this one goes, let me poke at it a little bit here. So this center one goes up into the center and attaches just at the center of the bib and comes down. And where this other version had, and they're really hard to see. Let me see if I can get my finger behind them. Where the previous version, and I just don't know if I'm going to be able to show this, has these little bows glued onto their chains. This one does not have those bows on the chains. However, around this double ruffle around the bottom of the skirt, it does have additional little flower appliques. So while they are very similar, there are some very distinct differences in the costume for the skeletal wing and the skeletal wing recolor. They're not simply a black and white color swapped version. They do use different fabrics and different trims and slightly different construction with the different skirts. So let's go ahead and get her dressed. Camera feels a little dark today, so maybe it's not picking up as well as I would like. So, but you can see some of the differences. Again, She has a very cute short pumpkin pants version of this doll. Um, she has this little garter that the Recolor does not have. Um, I wish both of their headbands actually had some sort of magnet instead of needing to use the putty, but I did use the putty for both of them. Her ribbons are longer than the original version of the doll, but otherwise, they're very similar. They just have some slight differences in the detailing of each one of the dolls. So that's the regular skeletal wing and the skeletal wing recolor. I have one more full doll to open from the Lulu Elf Story series, and this is the limited hanging card, Four-Eared Spirit. And the Four-Eared Spirit came in two colorways. This was the pastel one. It also came in a black version, which I don't actually, I'm looking at the website off to the side over here, and I don't actually see the dark version available anymore. Just this pale colored version. So again, the packaging is very pretty. It has a very lovely illustration on it. Okay, so the doll came with a stand, which I think is such a nice touch. So we have the character card, and the first thing I notice is that she has different shoes from everyone else. Everyone else has the same sort of Mary jeans, just in every color that matches their outfit. But she has these cute little pointy-toed elf boots. Those are very cute. She came with the high-heeled Mary Janes in black, and then she came with the um, loafers and the high-heeled loafers, and but instead of being colored, these are they're unpainted versions. Her packaging did not have her closed hands, her closed fists in it like the other, packaging did, but she does have the closed fists in this little extra bag of hands and feet. It appears that her skin color is the normal skin color as compared to the white skin color of the skeletal wing recolor. Alright, so she's definitely different. So, what we can tell from her card, just looking at her pieces. Okay, so we have her hat. Um, I think it's not my cup of tea, this hat, so I probably won't end up putting this on her, or at least it won't stay on her. But there's something really odd going on inside here. There's like, huh. So there's this elastic, which I assume goes around her head to keep her hat on, but it's like caught up underneath of these wire pieces, which I huh. So there's this ribbon. I call it a ribbon just because it's flat. Um, that's made out of sort of the same kind of thing you use for twist ties. It's like a heavy duty twist tie. It was holding this piece in. This would be the strap that keeps the hat on. So I think that this is intended to stay up inside in order to give the ears posability, but I don't think it's meant to hold the ribbon down. So I think I'm gonna, now that I've released the elastic, I'm gonna push those back up in there. And I think those are intended to make the little pom-pom ears to be posable and adjustable. Just now that it was keeping the elastic from being able to wrap around her head. So I think that's what's going on in there. I think you just have to pull those down pull the elastic out around it and then push them back up inside in order to keep it there. The ears itself is made out of a sort of matte satiny fabric that has a sort of a very pale gray color, borderline blue, but more gray than blue, and two white fuzzy pom poms on the top, and a scalloped bit of shiny lace trim around the bottom. She has full tights that are a very open weave lace that go all the way from toes to her waist, which is kind of unusual. 'Cause most of these dolls you see, they have stockings of some sort. Then going over those is what I see from the photographs. I don't see it on her character card. I guess you can just barely see it in her character card. But this is a garter similar to the one that Skeletal Wing has. It's a sort of patent shiny blue leather material that has elastic, white elastic on the back to keep tension on it, and that's what keeps it up. She has what I think is a neck ruffle. This is like a little collar. It's made out of gathered lace on a blue piece of satin. The ribbons for the ties are extremely short. These are not going to be long enough to be a bow, so I'm just going to have to tie them in sort of a square knot in the back. Um, Extremely short, though. I wonder why they didn't just make it a plain circle then and not bother with the long ties. And I say long, and these long ties are already fraying. But in the center, there's another pale blue bow in the middle of that. Her tail is a little crumpled, but it is a stuffed sort of fishhook shape, and it does have an adjustable wire inside. The bow itself is a bit messed up from being squished up in the packaging, but it's a pale blue bow on a pale pink tail. Roommate came home, so I needed to take a talking break. But just to wrap up the outfit really quickly, let's talk about the little shoes. So she has the little, like I said, pointed elf shoes. They are white with a slight pearlescent sheen to them and a pale blue bottom. And then they have this really pretty decal on them of a rainbow colored bow in multicolors. And then in terms of her dress, oh, it's in the same pale blue gray. I don't know what you call this. So in the front, it's like this bib and has sort of a picture of a four-eared spirit on it, screen printed in white and darker turquoise blue. It has a little sleepy face on the front of it. This gray blue bib that matches the hairpiece or the hat, I should say, has a white scalloped ribbon around the outside, and it's just like a little bib. And there's sort of matching wing shaped pieces in the back. They have sort of an unusual sort of scallop swoop to the bottom. They are on some kind of fusible interfacing that they were ironed onto so to prevent fraying. They are not hemmed on most of the sides, but they are sewn along the back Velcro. There's a single piece of long Velcro in the back, which I assume her tail fits under. The dress that these decorative pieces are over is a very sheer, sort of stripy fabric with metallic threads running through it. It has two ruffles around the bottom, and then it has a matching ruffle around the neck. Again, this is not hemmed. And then she has two long sleeves, and these sleeves terminate in ribbons, scalloped ribbons. And then the last part is over her shoulders. She has these light blue ribbon straps to keep the top up. So let's go ahead and dress her. And welcome back once again. So sometimes videos are just like cursed. And so between all of the distractions, between the three cats, the neighbors screaming, the weird whistling noise, and my roommate coming home early, we have finally reached the end of this cursed video. I have dressed the four-ear spirits, and now just to take a quick gander at what her hair looks like and her makeup and then her special little friend. Her hair is a matte, there's no shimmer or anything to it, but it is this really pretty pastel pink with a blue ombre towards the tips. She has very large ears, and again, like the other dolls, her ears are actually part of her hair and not a separate part. Um, they are firmly affixed, so she has these four dark ears, two small ones, two large ones, and they are of a sort of a dark mauve color with a sort of a neutral blue gray on the inside, and they have these little dots and little X's. And she has very long pigtails in the back that are just slightly braided. There's a blue scrunchie or ribbon that's around the base of the pigtail, and the ombre turns into a light blue at the bottom from the lighter pink at the top. And then just above her hair, she has this ruffled headband that is part of her outfit. It is not separate, but it is white and then has the little blue dots around it. And so excuse me, I think in terms of how she should wear her hat, I think perhaps we put the back on first and then the front second. So we'll put the hat on. Maybe this should go underneath of the ears. Oops. Again, I'm not sure I'll display her with this jester hat. It's not my favorite of the costume pieces I've seen for these dolls. Before I put the front of her hat on, we can take a really good look at her eyes. So she has very dark purple eyelashes, a little straight across mouth, dark purple eyebrows, and then her eyes are a sort of a muted blue with a very bright blue pupil inside. Let's pop her hair on. And I feel like it should fit. Maybe it should go in front of her ears. It feels like it wants to fall off backwards if we don't put it maybe in front of her ears then. Let's try that again. I don't know, because then you have this really weird bit of elastic that you can definitely see there, but it does want to fall off the other way. Now you can purchase this four-eared spirit from Kika Goods at this point. This is the regular colored four-eared spirit. They did not appear to have the special Recolor four-eared spirit on the website, but I did look on my phone. And so you can still purchase this Recolor with the black ears instead of the light gray ears, and the dark purple instead of the pale blue gray colors. You can still purchase this off of AliExpress, and they're about the same cost for both the four-ear and then what's considered the four-ear um, Recolor. And this one's at $68 on this particular one. That was excessively noisy. And then just to look at her little friend, he is every bit as pearlescent and shiny as the special Recolor of the skeletal wing. Extremely pearlescent, has the pink bow at the top, the light gray eyes and inside of the ears, and there's an X, and then a beautiful like dark pink ombre across the bottom end of his tail. And like the rest of them, his tail moves independently, although his head does not move. It looks like it should, like there's a little seam there, but it doesn't actually move. But the tail does. So, just looking over our friend here, this tail makes it extremely awkward to display her, at least on the table. I'm not sure I'll leave this tail on. I don't think it really adds that much to her. So this will probably go with the hat into the Ziploc bag of extra parts when she goes to be displayed on the shelf. Um, I did make a little hole in her tights when I put them on because they were a little difficult to get over her butt. And I ended up accidentally making a little hole with my skewer. So do be careful of that if you're putting the tights on her. But other than that, I think the outfit's quite cute. You may have noticed on the video when I tied this, I had to make a permanent square knot for her neck ruffle, just because those ties were nowhere near as long as they need to be to actually tie a bow. So there's a permanent square knot there, and if I want to remove this, I'm either going to have to pick the knot open or I'm going to have to remove her head to do it. And then I did end up on camera melting the ends of the ribbons because they were fraying. So, but overall, I think the outfit's pretty cute. I was definitely in a pastel mood, I think, when I was purchasing this time. I normally like dolls with sort of a darker color palette or a more gothy color palette, and do look forward to the new Q's Devil Horn series that's going to be coming out very shortly. But yeah, I must have been in a pastel buying mood because whenever I could have opted for a darker colored doll, I did end up for the pastel colored doll. So who knows what I was thinking at the time. Um, so while she's maybe not a doll I would normally purchase, I do think she's really cute. I do like her really long pigtails. So we've now opened the four-eared spirits, the recolor of the skeletal wing, regular skeletal wing, and then our blind box friend, Plume Moth, who was specially chosen. Here are our girls. And there was one other thing that I did purchase. I didn't purchase any of the additional outfits during this buy, but I did purchase the extra head. And so this head is a recolor of I believe it's the Megalotail sheep. She comes with some putty. Let's see. There we go. So this extra head that you could purchase separately, She has some very dark maroon eyelashes. Her mouth is a little open circle. She has some blushing under her cheeks. She has two little like beauty mark dots under her eyes, and then she has sort of uplifted brown or eyebrows. You can definitely see those pretty well. Her eyes, and she did come with an additional neck piece. Her eyes are a dark maroon on top and then a paler pink in the middle for the irises. They're quite pretty. They're not particularly elaborate in terms of their design. Whoops. Oh no. Ah, did I mention this video is cursed? Where did it go? They went straight to the floor. Okay. Okay, so that's what the face looks like with the eyes in it. It's very sweet. It's not particularly fancy or oh. So, did I mention that this video is just cursed? The camera cut out, but let's return to talking about our friend. At one point she's called the heterochromatic head, but this is the recolor of the Megalotail sheep. So it's just the pretty little head. Then if we just take a look at her hair, it's a very dark maroon color. And the lighting in this video has also been kind of super dark, so it's a little hard to see. But her hair is a very dark maroon, and then it has a black ombre at the tips of the bangs. Let me see if I can put my finger there. You can see the bangs. And to the sides of her hair where it's hanging down, those are also ombre black. And then the tips of her braids, as well as the little bows that go down her hair. She does not have ears on her wig itself. Her ears are on her headband. And this is quite a substantial headband as compared to, let me just pop this one off. So this is the size of the skeletal. Let me see, where's the best place? So you can see here's the size of what the skeletal wings headband looks like versus the size of the sheep's headband. It's much, much bigger. It has a lighter colored pink on the inside and the ruffle around the outside. And then there's two ruffles across the top. Then the very dark maroon pink are bows on either side. And then she has these two swooping ears, and the color of the tips of those ears is a very dark red that actually you don't really see in the rest of her outfit. Now, she did come with some putty to stick the headband on with, but I think her ears are meant to sweep forward, so perhaps it goes like this. Let me put her fully together. Yeah, it must be this part must be the front, I think. And so when you put it on her head, um, again, it doesn't have any magnets or anything to keep it on. It does stay on a little better than the skeletal wings headband does, maybe just because it's larger. Her little ears swoop backwards. Um, but probably if you're going to actually display this, you probably want to put a little bit of the putty on as well. So, thank you for joining me for opening up our friends from the Lulu Elf series. We have the Megalotail Deer Head recolor, the four-eared spirit in the light colorway, the recolor. Oh, she has something in her eye. The recolor with the very pale skin for the skeletal wing, the original blind box skeletal wing in her dark colorway, and then our friend the Plume Moth, and each one of their cute little friends. Like I said, I just love the fact that they come with a little friend. It reminds me so much of like the dolls from my childhood. So I look forward to displaying them all. I'll make some changes. This little hat's gonna go straight into the bag of extra bits, but generally, I think that the bodies, when I was dressing them, They had a hard time staying in one spot. I've been displaying Skeletal Wing on my shelf, for the last couple of weeks, and she stands okay when she's leaning against something, but she doesn't like to hold poses very well. So the bodies themselves are maybe kind of meh, but I do think the clothes are quite cute. A lot of the lace is very pretty. And would I say that they're extremely unique designs? Probably not, but I would say that they, are sort of they're pretty interesting in terms of design. So, in general, I'd say I liked them. The bodies themselves are a little hit or miss in terms of their functionality, but aesthetically, I do like them quite a bit. So, thank you for joining me for this unboxing of the brand new, delayed a little bit, Lulu Elf Story series. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this in depth review and are as passionate about dolls as I am, don't forget to like the video. Give it that magical thumbs up. It keeps us motivated and really helps the channel grow. Make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you won't miss what's next. We have got an incredible number of new BJD and MJD dolls arriving over the next few months. Don't tell my editor, but I've counted up my pre orders and prepare for well over 30 new dolls. There is a doll for every collector, and hopefully you'll find your dream dolls too. Live vicariously through my budget, and let's celebrate neurodivergent hyperfixations together. If you're just finding us now, we have got a treasure trove of over 30 doll videos in our back catalog waiting for you to explore. If you also enjoy puzzles and card games, please check out our other playlists. Drop a comment below and let me know which doll line you're most excited about. I love hearing from you, answering any questions, and growing our doll community together.